Drink 1 cup to clean your arteries, prevent heart attack. Cardiovascular health has never been something Americans can afford to ignore, especially when the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that a heart-related death occurs every 33 seconds in the United States. And if we're honest with ourselves, the problem doesn't suddenly appear at 60 or 70. It starts decades earlier, back when fast food counted as dinner, when anything fried was comfort, when sugar lived in almost everything we bought, and when salt was sprinkled without a second thought. Add years of stressful work schedules, late nights, skipped breakfasts, oversized portions, and the habit of grabbing whatever was quick and cheap. And all of that quietly settles into our arteries long before we ever notice a symptom. Then, somewhere after 50, the body begins to speak up, a slight tightness in the chest when hurrying across a parking lot, a stronger heartbeat after a flight of stairs, tingling or heaviness in the legs after sitting too long. These weren't issues when we were young, but now they're reminders of the choices we made back then, the choices that slowly shape the health of our arteries today, and it's exactly because of this threat, because millions of American families are living with fear, uncertainty, and silent heart risks, that I decided to make this video. I'm not asking you to subscribe. I'm simply asking you to stay with me until the end, because every second you invest here may give you something that protects your life or the life of someone you love. If one small daily habit, 1 cup, can help clean your arteries and lower your risk of a heart attack, then you deserve to know it. And with that, let's move straight into the very first part. 1. Pomegranate juice, 100% pure. It surprises many older Americans that pomegranate wasn't originally prized for taste. Ancient physicians valued it because its juice refused to spoil quickly, even in heat. That unusual stability comes from punicalagins, antioxidants so dense they act like derusting agents for the inner lining of your arteries. And when you're over 60, that becomes a lifesaver, because the artery wall tends to harden the same way an old garden hose stiffens after years in the sun. Pure pomegranate juice sends in compounds that protect nitric oxide from breaking down too quickly, helping your arteries stay wider and smoother so blood moves with less resistance. What makes it even more meaningful is how fast your body responds. As punicalagins circulate, they neutralize oxidized particles that cling to artery walls, the same particles that raise heart attack risk when they accumulate. That's why a clinical review from the National Institutes of Health recorded a measurable reduction in arterial thickness equal to the width of a human hair after consistent pomegranate intake. Tiny, yes, but inside the body those small improvements add up to major protection. And while most people simply drink it cold, there's a quiet trick used by dietitians working with older adults, gently warming your daily serving. Around 10 seconds in the microwave for a 4-ounce cup, releases more polyphenol into a soluble form your digestive tract absorbs better. Even more useful, holding each sip in your mouth for 5 seconds lets salivary enzymes break down tannins, making the juice taste smoother while increasing uptake. It's simple, it's safe, and it gives this ruby-colored drink the chance to do what it does best, help your arteries stay calm, open, and steady. 2. Green tea, unsweetened. Most Americans don't know that the earliest green tea records weren't about relaxation, they were about endurance. Soldiers drank it to stay alert without stressing their heartbeat, and the reason becomes clear when you look at EGCG, the powerful compound that travels through your bloodstream neutralizing unstable particles before they turn into artery-damaging oxidized LDL. After 60, your defense against oxidation naturally weakens, making the arteries more vulnerable to tiny scratches on their inner surface. Green tea steps in as a biochemical shield, keeping LDL from transforming into the sticky form that begins plaque buildup. But what makes green tea special for older adults is how it activates AMPK. A cellular housekeeping switch. When AMPK wakes up, your cells start clearing leftover fats and proteins floating in your bloodstream. You feel the difference as steadier energy and calmer circulation. This isn't folklore. A large cardiovascular analysis from the American Heart Association found that habitual green tea drinkers experienced fewer cardiac episodes per 1,000 individuals compared to those who rarely consumed it, showing that consistent intake creates a measurable advantage. And because many Americans prefer iced tea, here's a method that actually enhances potency instead of weakening it: cold brewing. When you steep 2 teaspoons of loose tea in 1 quart of cold filtered water overnight, you preserve far more EGCG because heat isn't breaking it down. The result is a smoother tea with stronger antioxidative impact. Another small, almost unknown kitchen trick, adding just 1/8 teaspoon of baking soda while it brews stabilizes catechins and cuts bitterness, giving you a drink that's both gentler on the stomach and more effective for arterial calm. 1 cup a day, and your arteries feel as if someone finally turned down the internal noise. 3. Fresh lemon water. Lemon water seems simple, almost too simple, until you realize why naval doctors once carried barrels of lemons on every long voyage. The fruit preserved blood vessel elasticity better than anything else available at the time. That elasticity is exactly what older arteries desperately need. After 60, the endothelial lining, the thin inner layer of your arteries, loses its ability to stretch. The vitamin C and natural citrate in lemons feed that lining, helping it stay flexible instead of stiff and strained. When your arteries can stretch, they can handle blood pressure changes more gracefully, lowering stress on the heart. What makes lemon water uniquely powerful is how it interacts with morning biochemistry. Drinking it first thing primes your digestive system to absorb minerals like potassium and magnesium more efficiently, minerals crucial for smooth vascular contraction. And because the mild acidity supports nitric oxide recycling, your arteries maintain better relaxation throughout the day. None of this is guesswork. Researchers from the Harvard School of Public Health reported that individuals with higher vitamin C intake showed notably fewer coronary complications in long-term tracking, reinforcing how essential this nutrient is for vascular maintenance as we age. And since Americans love convenience, here's a technique few people know but makes a real difference. Slice 1 lemon. Peel 2 thin strips of zest, and drop both into 12 ounces of warm water, not cold. Warm water, not hot, helps release limonene from the peel, a compound with calming effects on the artery wall. If the taste is too sharp, rolling the lemon firmly on the counter for 8 to 10 seconds breaks internal membranes and sweetens the juice naturally. Done this way, lemon water becomes more than a morning routine, it becomes quiet reinforcement for your arteries before the day even starts. 4. Beet juice. Beets earned their reputation long before they reached American supermarkets. Olympic athletes used them because of their unusual nitrate concentration, something almost no other vegetable matches. For someone over 60, where nitric oxide production has dropped sharply, beet juice works like flipping the circulation switch back on. Your body converts beet nitrates into nitric oxide, the molecule that tells arteries to relax and widen. When arteries widen, blood glides instead of pushing, and your heart doesn't have to work as hard with every beat. The effect isn't theoretical. You can feel it in your hands and feet, warmer, fuller, more alive, because nitric oxide reduces resistance along the vascular pathways. On the biochemical level, nitrates stimulate the enos pathway, making arteries more responsive to pressure changes. A clinical summary supported by the British Heart Foundation recorded an average drop in systolic readings equivalent to lowering the height of a stack of 5 US pennies, a small but meaningful sign of reduced vascular strain. What many Americans don't realize is that beet nitrates are delicate, they break down easily if the juice is stored too long. That's why freezing beet juice into 1 tablespoon cubes is such an effective method. Drop 1 or 2 cubes into warm water, not boiling, and they melt slowly, preserving nitrate potency better than fridge storage. Another kitchen trick older adults appreciate, adding a pinch of cracked black pepper, about 1/16 TSP, enhances nitrate utilization because piperine improves overall nutrient absorption. The result is smoother circulation and a measurable lightness in your chest, the kind you feel when your arteries finally get the space they've been asking for. 5. OAT milk smoothie, unsweetened. It often surprises people over 60 that oat milk wasn't created for lactose issues. It originated from cardiovascular research because oats carry beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that behaves almost like a sponge inside the bloodstream. When you blend unsweetened oat milk into a morning smoothie, that beta-glucan forms a gel-like layer in the gut, grabbing onto excess cholesterol particles before they slip into the bloodstream. With age, your liver processes cholesterol less efficiently, so giving your body an internal filter becomes more than helpful, it becomes protective. This gentle binding action lowers the number of particles circulating near your artery walls, reducing the chance they harden or become inflamed. The real beauty of oat-based drinks is how they stabilize post-meal blood flow. Many Americans notice afternoon sluggishness after eating, which comes from slow digestion and thickened blood viscosity. Oat milk's natural prebiotics feed gut bacteria that, in turn, produce short-chain fatty acids, tiny molecules that help arteries stay more relaxed instead of tightening under stress. A nutrition report highlighted by the U.S. Department of Agriculture found that older adults consuming higher beta-glucan foods showed a measurable improvement in LDL particle size, shifting them toward the safer, fluffy type that's less likely to lodge in arteries. And because smoothies are so common in American kitchens, you can make them far more potent with one overlooked tactic: add 2 tablespoons of plain oats into the blender even when using oat milk. Doubling the beta-glucan gives the drink more cholesterol-binding power. If you want even gentler digestion, let the oats soak in half a cup oat milk for 12 minutes before blending. That short soak releases enzymes that deepen the gel-forming effect. The result is a drink that doesn't just fill you, it quietly supports your arteries from the inside out. 6. Ginger, cinnamon herbal water. Long before ginger became a kitchen staple, healers kept it for one reason: it thins the blood just enough to improve flow without weakening the body. For Americans over 60, that slight reduction in blood thickness can feel like someone just opened a narrow hallway inside the arteries. Ginger contains gingerols and shogales, compounds that help quiet inflammatory signals triggered when arteries face constant pressure changes. Cinnamon adds something different: it supports smooth muscle relaxation along artery walls. Together, they create a warm, steady circulation that many older adults notice within days. What gives this drink its edge is how its compounds are released through simmering, not boiling. When you simmer ginger and cinnamon gently, their oils dissolve into the water and carry anti-inflammatory molecules that interact with your endothelium, the inner skin of your arteries. Over time, this helps maintain better elasticity. This isn't folklore either. A controlled evaluation cited by the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health noted that ginger consumption produced a reduction in platelet aggregation equivalent to decreasing the thickness of a teaspoon of honey by 1 fingertip's depth, a surprisingly clear way to visualize how it eases blood flow. And because many older Americans enjoy warm beverages in the evening, there's a simple method to unlock even more potency: slice fresh ginger into quarter-inch coins. Then simmer 4 pieces with 1 cinnamon stick for exactly 11 minutes. That timing extracts flavor without releasing the bitterness that often comes from overcooking. If you prefer stronger effects, smash the ginger coin once with the flat side of a spoon before simmering. Breaking the fibers increases oil release without needing more ginger. 7. Blueberry antioxidant drink. Blueberries earned the nickname artery berries in early nutrition research because their dark color hides anthocyanins, pigments that act almost like bodyguards for aging arteries. When you blend fresh or frozen blueberries with water instead of juice concentrate, you avoid the sugar spike and keep the protective compounds intact. That matters a lot after 60, because excess sugar stiffens artery walls, while anthocyanins do the opposite. They help blood vessels stay more flexible by protecting collagen inside the arterial lining. The biggest advantage of this drink is how it reduces oxidative stress in a very specific way. Anthocyanins slow the breakdown of nitric oxide, giving you longer periods of relaxed arteries throughout the day. This sustained effect helps maintain smoother circulation, steadier blood pressure, and a calmer heartbeat. A long-term dietary review from the U.S. National Library of Medicine observed that individuals with high blueberry intake showed a noticeable improvement in arterial compliance equal to lengthening the time it takes for pulse waves to bounce back through the vessels, a subtle but meaningful indicator of healthier, more elastic arteries. And because blueberries blend easily, you can strengthen the drink's impact with a trick most Americans never hear about: add a quarter cup of ice before blending. The cold temperature protects anthocyanins from heat generated by high-speed blending, keeping them more stable. If you want even deeper benefits, toss in half a teaspoon of lemon zest. The natural citrus oils help your body absorb more antioxidants by activating digestive enzymes in the first part of the small intestine. You end up with a drink that tastes bright, blends smoothly, and delivers antioxidants in a form your arteries know exactly how to use. Before you leave, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video with anyone you care about, especially those who might be silently struggling with poor circulation. Your one click could be the reason someone avoids a dangerous health scare tomorrow. And if there's any topic you want me to cover next, just drop a comment below. I always read them. To sum it up, neglecting your arterial health isn't just a small oversight, it can slowly pile up into something severe, unexpected, and irreversible. When you ignore these simple nightly habits, plaque keeps building, blood flow keeps slowing, and the risk of serious cardiovascular events rises day after day. Taking action now is far easier than trying to undo years of damage later. But let me ask you this, do you know which daily food silently stiffens your arteries the most? While waiting for the next video, check out the one already on your screen. It might be the knowledge that protects your heart for years to come. Cardiologists warn, 7 early signs of heart failure, you ignore daily. Honestly, I don't want you to end up in this situation, not even for a moment, but if you have a history of heart problems, or if you're over 60 and genuinely care about your own health and the people around you, then this video is for you. And yes, anyone with a known heart condition would never ignore a title like this. But why should older adults pay special attention? Because here in the United States, cardiovascular disease is still the #1 cause of death. Recent national reports show that 48.6% of American adults are living with some form of cardiovascular disease, whether it's high blood pressure, coronary artery issues, stroke, or early-stage heart failure. Among people over 65, the risk climbs even higher, and research shows that once heart failure develops, it can shorten life expectancy by 7 to 15 years compared with others the same age who don't have the condition. If these early signs go unnoticed, the consequences can be severe: repeated hospital visits, a dramatic drop in energy and independence, and a much greater chance that small, manageable symptoms turn into life-threatening emergencies. That's exactly why I've poured real time, effort, and heart into creating this video. So I hope you'll support me with a quick subscribe, and now, without waiting any longer, let's get into the very first symptom. 1. Shortness of breath during simple tasks. Most people don't know this, but back in the 1950s, cardiologists discovered something strange while observing coal workers. Men who were perfectly strong still found themselves gasping for air when climbing just a single flight of stairs, long before any chest pain ever showed up. That same early pattern now appears quietly in older Americans at home, especially when you start losing your breath during simple tasks like bending to pick up laundry or carrying a gallon of milk from the fridge to the counter. It creeps in without drama. You start needing to pause just for a second, yet that second grows longer each week. The real reason this happens is because the heart isn't pushing blood efficiently enough, causing a subtle backup of fluid in the lungs, and the body responds by forcing you to breathe faster to make up the difference. It shows up in minutes, not hours. Most people feel the breathlessness within the first 30 to 60 seconds of mild movement, even if they insist they're fine. And when the lungs start holding even a little extra fluid, less than the volume of a half-cup measuring cup, you can feel as if the air around you suddenly turned heavy. A small but practical trick many cardiology nurses teach older Americans is this: if you want to catch early breathlessness before it becomes dangerous, try reading a short paragraph out loud while walking from the kitchen to the front door. If your voice starts breaking or you can't finish the paragraph without stopping for a breath, that's often an earlier sign than any medical device will give you. And here's the part that often shocks people: breathlessness from heart issues usually improves when you sit upright but strangely feels worse when you bend forward, because the pressure shifts toward the lungs. So if you've been finding yourself avoiding small tasks simply because your breath hasn't caught up yet, your heart may already be struggling more than you've admitted. But then again, if breathlessness is the invisible warning inside your chest, what do you make of the quiet, gradual swelling that rises along your skin like a slow tide, soft, shiny, and oddly hard to ignore once you finally look at it? 2. Swollen ankles or feet. There's a fascinating old-school fact from early heart research. Doctors used to test leg swelling by pressing a thumb into the ankle for 5 full seconds, and timing how long the dent stayed. If it lasted longer than the time it took to boil 2 tablespoons of water in a small metal cup over a flame, they suspected early heart failure. Today, we understand that swelling in the ankles or feet comes from fluid pooling because the heart can't keep blood moving against gravity, but the outward sign still tells the same story: your body is storing water where it shouldn't. The telling clue is how the swelling behaves. It often starts late in the evening, then drifts earlier into your day until one morning you wake up and the puffiness is already there, pressing against your socks. If you gently press around the ankle bone and the mark remains longer than the count of 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, it's often the body hinting that the heart is losing ground. And here's a tip many older Americans find surprisingly useful: keep a simple quarter teaspoon measuring spoon on your counter. Each morning, tip it gently into the inside arch of your foot. If the skin feels stretched, glossy, or uncomfortably tight against the metal, even before standing for the day, that subtle sensation can reveal fluid retention earlier than visible swelling. What makes this symptom particularly important is its predictability. Swelling rarely appears randomly. It builds, layer by layer, like water behind a dam, especially during weeks when you've been sitting longer, sleeping less, or feeling unusually fatigued. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear, it simply makes the next sign louder. And while you can brush off breathlessness, swelling is different. It's right there, staring back at you, proof on the outside of a struggle happening on the inside. But if swelling is the body's visible whisper for help, then what does it mean when your energy itself begins to drain away, leaving you exhausted even before your day has properly begun, heavy, slow, and sinking deeper than ordinary tiredness? 3. Persistent fatigue. Here's a surprising piece of medical history. Before modern scanners existed, doctors would test heart-related fatigue by asking people to lift a cast-iron skillet with one hand and hold it for 10 seconds. Those with early heart issues often felt their arm trembling by the 7th second, not because their muscles were weak, but because their heart wasn't delivering enough oxygen to keep the muscle steady. That same kind of deep, dragging exhaustion shows up in older Americans today in far quieter ways. You might wake up already tired, feel drained halfway through folding laundry, or need to rest after showering because somehow the steam and movement took more out of you than expected. This kind of fatigue doesn't behave like normal aging. It appears earlier in the day, lingers even after rest, and often comes with a strange mental fog, as if someone dimmed the lights inside your mind. And because it builds slowly, people often explain it away for months. But the truth is simple: when the heart can't send enough oxygen to the brain and muscles, the body forces you to conserve energy. Here's a surprisingly effective household tip many cardiologists quietly recommend: keep a 1-cup measuring cup filled with water by your bedside. Each morning, lift it with your arm extended. If your arm shakes, burns, or tires before you reach the slow count of 6, that's often an early functional sign that oxygen delivery is lagging. Fatigue tied to the heart becomes especially telling when paired with unusual heaviness: your clothes feeling tighter, your belly feeling fuller, or the number on the scale climbing for reasons you can't explain. And the longer this fatigue stays, the more it connects to the next early sign, one that doesn't creep, but rather appears, suddenly and unexpectedly, as if your body has gained weight overnight, dense and uncomfortable in ways that have nothing to do with food. So if fatigue has already become your uninvited companion, what should you think when your body begins adding a strange, sudden heaviness that feels thicker, tighter, and unmistakably out of place? 4. Rapid weight gain. One of the lesser-known truths about heart function is that even a small shift in fluid, less than what fits inside a standard half-pint mason jar, can show up as multiple pounds on the scale in just a day or two. That's why rapid weight gain is one of the most alarming early signs. It's not fat, it's trapped fluid, and it happens because the heart can't push blood effectively enough to keep pressure stable. You can feel it in subtle ways at first: your rings fitting tighter, your waistband digging in, your face looking slightly puffier in the mirror even though your diet hasn't changed at all. For many older Americans, the first clue comes from something as simple as realizing their slippers suddenly feel snug. A small but powerful home trick involves your kitchen scale. Weigh a single cup of water, it's exactly 8 ounces, then remember how light that feels in your hand. If your body suddenly adds the equivalent of 2 or 3 of those cups within 24 hours, without food or lifestyle changes, it's almost always fluid accumulation. This kind of gain often comes with a tightness around the abdomen, a sense of heaviness when bending forward, or the odd sensation that lying flat makes breathing slightly harder. And while stepping on the scale isn't fun, it's one of the earliest ways to catch trouble before it becomes an emergency. A sudden jump is your body practically shouting that pressure inside the circulatory system is rising. The sooner you notice it, the sooner you can act. And this is where everything starts tying together. Fluid gain leads to nighttime coughing, difficulty lying flat, changes in your heartbeat, and a shrinking tolerance for activity. Yet the next signal is often the one people misunderstand the most, not something you see or measure, but something you feel inside your chest, like a restless rhythm that refuses to settle. So if rapid weight gain sends its warning through heaviness, what happens when that warning shifts into a sensation that flickers, flutters, and stirs from deep within? 5. Nighttime cough or trouble lying flat. Most people never hear this story, but early cardiac researchers at Johns Hopkins in the 1960s used to test hidden lung fluid by having a person lie flat on a wooden exam table for exactly 30 seconds. If the person began coughing before the half-minute passed, the doctors suspected the heart wasn't keeping up with nighttime pressure. The same phenomenon appears today in older Americans at home. You settle into bed, you're ready to rest, but the moment you lie flat your chest feels strangely crowded, and a dry, nagging cough starts creeping up like an unwanted visitor. You prop up an extra pillow. Then another. And eventually you find yourself half-sitting just to breathe comfortably. This isn't allergies, and it's rarely the AC being too cold. What's happening is remarkably simple. When the heart weakens, fluid shifts more easily toward the lungs when the body is horizontal, causing the tiny airways to tighten and tickle until you're forced to cough. For many people, this odd night cough shows up long before they ever experience daytime breathlessness. A surprisingly effective home clue older Americans use involves the standard 9x13-inch baking pan. If lying back feels like someone placed that pan, full of invisible weight, across your chest, that heaviness is often an early sign of fluid redistribution. And here's a household trick that cardiology nurses often whisper to families: if you find yourself needing more than 2 pillows to sleep comfortably, stack them beside your bed during the day. If the stack keeps getting taller over the weeks, something deeper is progressing, no matter how much you want to tell yourself it's just sinuses. The nighttime cough always carries a message. Your body handles gravity differently when your heart is strained, and the more you ignore it, the louder the next signal becomes, your heartbeat itself starting to misfire, flutter, or thump in ways you've never felt before. So if the night is already nudging you awake with that scratchy, unsettled feeling in your chest, what does it mean when your own heartbeat begins sending sharp, restless ripples through your ribcage? 6. Heart racing or irregular beats. Here's a fascinating fact almost nobody knows. Long before wearable heart monitors existed, researchers used ceramic coffee mugs to detect irregular beats. If the mug rattled on the table every few minutes, caused by subtle chest vibrations, the doctors suspected early rhythm problems. That same jittery, unpredictable sensation is what many older Americans feel today. Your heart suddenly kicks, flutters, or races as if it's trying to outrun something you can't see. It might last only a few seconds or stretch into minutes, and the strangest part is how it often appears during quiet moments, watching TV, reading, or lying in bed. When the heart struggles to pump efficiently, the electrical system tries to compensate by firing faster, harder, or in messy patterns. Some people describe it as a bird trapped in their chest. Others say it feels like their heartbeat is skipping up the steps 2 at a time. And while it's tempting to blame caffeine or nerves, the truth is that the heart is one of the few organs that talks back in real time when it's under strain. A small but surprisingly clever home technique involves the kitchen timer. Place your hand against your chest and count your heartbeats for 15 seconds, then multiply by 4. If the number jumps more than 20 beats when you repeat the check a minute later, without moving or stressing, that variability is often an early sign of rhythm instability. Another tip older Americans use is placing a wooden spoon handle gently against the sternum. If you can feel the tapping through the wood, the force of the heartbeat is stronger than normal, often signaling that the heart is pushing against pressure it can't quite overcome. And once rhythm changes settle in, they rarely stay alone. They often appear just before another early sign, you slowly lose the ability to tolerate activity that used to feel manageable, as if your body is quietly shrinking the world you can move around in. So if your heartbeat is already shifting into a restless, jittery pattern, what does it mean when even a short walk begins to feel heavier, slower, and strangely more draining than it used to? 7. Decreased exercise tolerance. There's an intriguing fact from old military fitness testing. Decades ago, examiners noticed that soldiers developing early cardiac issues couldn't complete a simple yardstick test, walking 10 yards while breathing easily, long before any pain or dramatic symptoms appeared. That same early warning sign shows up today in older Americans in far subtler ways. You begin noticing that your usual walk to the mailbox now feels longer, that carrying a laundry basket leaves you oddly winded, or that climbing the porch steps requires a pause even though you've done it for years without thinking. This shift doesn't come with fanfare, it sneaks in through comparison. The task is the same, your body's response isn't. What's really happening is that the heart is losing its reserve, the little extra push it normally gives during activity. When that reserve weakens, your muscles tire faster because they're receiving less oxygen with every beat. A useful but little-known home method involves using a standard kitchen tablespoon. Place it flat on your thigh after a short walk. If your thigh pulses strongly enough to make the spoon tremble or rock, that's often a sign that the heart is pushing harder than it should for such a small effort. Another tip some older Americans swear by is timing how long it takes to walk from the kitchen sink to the mailbox while breathing only through the nose. If you feel forced to mouth breathe earlier than usual, your exercise tolerance is dropping, and it often drops weeks before more obvious symptoms appear. The toughest part is admitting the change. Many people mistake this early decline for getting older, but the timeline gives it away. Age changes slowly, heart problems change quickly. When your world starts shrinking, shorter walks, lighter chores, longer rests, that's the heart tugging on the brakes before you even realize you've stopped moving as freely as you once did. And once exercise tolerance slips, the chain of symptoms begins looping back into the others, forming the early picture of a heart working harder than it can afford. So if even your simplest movements now come with that slow, dragging resistance, what will you do with the knowledge that your body has been whispering these clues all along? If you've watched this far, do yourself and someone you love a favor, hit subscribe, like this video, and especially share it. Sharing might be the one action that helps someone catch a deadly warning sign before it's too late. And if there's any topic you want me to break down next, tell me in the comments so I can make exactly what you need. To sum it up, ignoring these early signals doesn't make them disappear, it only gives danger more time to grow in silence. Heart failure rarely arrives overnight, it whispers first. And the people who survive it aren't the ones who are lucky, they're the ones who paid attention early enough to fight back. And while waiting for the next video, go ahead and watch the one I've placed right here on your screen. It'll give you even more tools to protect your health and your future.